Hey everybody, what's going on? Today we're talking about fusions. We're going to talk about how to prioritize your fusions as a newer player because there's a lot in here and you might not know which direction you need to head in that's going to be efficient for you. So I mentioned a couple videos back we would talk about this, and today's the day we're going to do that. So you've got a series of Nat 4s and a series of Nat 5s. And especially if you're new to the game, you're going to have no idea who you should be going for or how you should be doing this. Now, a lot of the Nat 4s here are food for the Nat 5s fusions. So they've made them all fairly farmable. There are some good Nat 4s down here, and you're going to use them at different stages of the game. So what we want to do is point you in the direction of the most efficient fusions to focus as a new player, and then as you progress later in the game and start working on different things, you can start to get a better idea of what they all do and who you need for what you need them for. So, for example, Katarina. I think this champ's name is Katarina Awakened. Is really good at the thing she's good at. She's really good at that. But she's not someone you're going to want to fuse early on to help you do anything. You know what I'm saying? By the time you need Katarina, you'll know why you need Katarina. Kind of the same with Harmonia. Harmonia is really good at some stuff she's good at, but you don't need it right now. So by the time you need it, you'll know she's good at it. You'll know why you need her, okay? The 4 stars, the premier 4 stars down here that we really want to focus on are Melia. You're going to need 3 copies of Melia, ultimately. You're going to need 2 for your GB12 team, which I've done a video on. I'll card to it up there. It's a very obtainable early game GB12 speed team. Seems to be averaging about 1:30 a run, and it's 100% success. Really not that hard to build. So you'll need 2 of her for that, and then you're going to need an extra copy of her for your Riley fusion. Okay, so you're going to need 3 copies of Melia. You're going to want Verd, because Verd's fantastic. I've talked about him in a few videos as well. He's going to really help you out in your dungeons, particularly Dragon. And then he can also be very handy later on in World Arena. He can be great for Siege. He can be great for lots of things as well. And Beretta. I would say Beretta is the 3rd one that you're going to want to focus on early on. Beretta is really good. Beretta is going to help you a lot in TOA, particularly. That's going to be really, really where Beretta shines. We have AoE dots here. We've got a full turn meter reset here. You get Beretta on a good stun set and a good despair set, and Beretta's going to do some work for you. So those are the 3 that I would say focus early on. The 4-star fusions are really not hard at all. You can usually farm in one way or another all of the champs that you need. They're not that hard to come by. And then a lot of them have a 2-star monster in them as well, okay, somewhere. No, Water Warbear's a 3-star. Maybe the Wind Fairy's a 2-star. Either way, I think they all have a 2-star in them, so they're not that hard to do, all right? So Melia, you need 3 copies of. Verd, get a copy of. And I would say Beretta, get a copy of. Beretta's not mandatory, but Beretta is nice for TOA, so that can be your call. Now, on to the Nat 5s, which is what I'm sure a lot of you are here for specifically. Although, don't overlook the Nat 4s. They're the ones we've talked about are good. And the other ones are good at other things, but not for now. You don't need to worry about them as a newer player. Up here, all of these Nat 5s are great, okay? I think perhaps the most niche of them is her. She's, as far as I know, unless something's changed, she's good at one thing, but again, she's really good at it. You have to set her up. She's really good in Siege or Guild Wars. It used to just be called Guild Wars. Now I guess it's called Siege, but if you set her up, she's gross. She's got a randomly attacks the enemies 2 to 3 times, so you can't pick who she attacks, but it'll be random. And if she's invincible, she ignores defense. So you can stack her up to do a ton of damage, and you pair her with someone like QB, who buffs attack power, crit rate, and gives invincibility. He sets her up to do disgusting damage, right? She doesn't have to set herself up anymore, because I'm pretty sure, yeah, if she kills someone with this one, she can turn herself invincible. So that way she doesn't have to set herself up for it. QB can do it. But again, she's arguably the last one you're going to fuse, okay? The ones that I would say are the top priorities that you should be focused on. We're going to talk about a few of them. Sigmaris belongs on this list in as far as which ones you want to focus first. Sigmaris is really good, and Sigmaris has a ridiculous HP lead for dungeons. 44% is absurd. So it's gonna make your rune requirements to stay alive in the dungeons much, much lower. It's gonna be a lot easier to build your teams with Sigmaris. Sigmaris also has pretty good AoE damage and a freeze. We've got a single target burst hit here with a freeze. Then we've got a stun on the A1. Sigmaris is really, really good. Can be the lead for your dragons and giants team for sure, early game. So Sigmaris is definitely someone that belongs in the conversation. Veramos, another one that certainly belongs in the conversation and is my personal recommendation on who to do first. I think Veramos is fantastic. I think the passive alleviates a lot of the trouble that you're going to come across in various places in the game. Veramos is going to help you in TOA. Veramos is going to help you in every single dungeon. I've been using Veramos in the early game Siege. I've been using Veramos in Arena. I take Veramos everywhere. He's got an HP lead that works everywhere. Very diverse monster, very useful monster, very simple monster to build. Swift or violent set, fast and tanky with some accuracy. We've got the passive that removes a single debuff from all allies every turn, except inability effects. So like freezes and stuns and stuff, it's not going to remove, but anything else it gets rid of. So it's a good way to get rid of that defense down in the Giants Keep. It's a good way to get rid of some of the dots in Dragon. You don't see what I'm saying? It's very useful. Then he heals for each harmful effect removed, and now he gets attack bar increase for each harmful effect remaining on the ally to help him get another turn faster. They've buffed him up a bit, I think, over the years. Here we've got an AoE stun, which is fairly reliable, and then here we've got dots on the A1. So he's just doing so much. He's doing so many different things for you, and he's so important. I've done it. He's part of that early game Giants speed team we talked about. I did a video about a team that'll carry you all the way through TOA normal. He's on that team. Again, he can be a staple to a lot of what you're doing in the early game and well into the mid game even, I would say. So Veramos is my personal recommendation on the first Nat 5 you should fuse. I think he's very important. And again, if you do want to build that Giants team, you're going to need him, because trying to do it with Lucian in the early game is very difficult. You need very high stats on the Lucian to make that happen. Veramos makes it much, much easier and 100% safe, okay? Another good option to talk about is Jean. I don't think I would recommend doing Jean first, but she could be in the first 3 that you do. She's also really good. She's got an AoE provoke for 2 turns on the A3, which is going to be invaluable in TOA. That is really, really handy. Probably also pretty handy in certain PvP situations, maybe some earlier game Arena. I don't know if she's getting used. I don't know how late into the PvP scene she's getting used, but certainly in the early game, she could be someone that could make your life a lot easier. But particularly in TOA, I think she's going to be very helpful. She's got a cleanse and invincibility for an ally, and then here we've got a stun on the A1 with a resistance lead. She's a solid option. Perhaps a bit more niche. Again, I don't know how widespread her utility is these days, but in TOA, if you need to lock down these waves a little bit, she's going to be able to help you do that a lot. Okay, and especially if you run her with someone like a Mav who can get rid of one of the cooldowns, get her 1 turn closer to this again, you might be able to, between this and like a Veramos who has a stun, you time them right, you might be able to completely keep the enemies from doing anything meaningful for the entire wave. Okay, so Jean is a really good option. And then of course Riley. Riley is a very popular one these days. The reason I'm not recommending her is because I haven't felt like I needed her yet. I see her get used in RTA. I see her get used in a lot of things, but it seems to be that she's getting used a little bit later. And I feel like in the early game, you have enough support options. They give you a Fran now. You can get a Bella. You've got some decent support early on that I don't feel like she's as necessary, but still very, very good. And it seems like she's someone that you're going to be able to get and use forever. Like she's never going to fall off. I just don't feel like there's a dire need for her early on. So I think if you fused her first, you're not wrong. She's going to be usable pretty much everywhere you want to take her. I just don't feel like she's necessary as the first fusion, okay? And then again, the Lightning Emperor here, I think he can do a lot of good damage. I think he's very good at a few things. I don't think they're things that you're going to be too concerned with in the early game. And then the Fire Panda, I think, is a good mid-level, like middle of the list option. If I'm not mistaken, he's caught a buff. I don't remember him being as good. I think when he gets awakened, it's a full team cleanse now. Like this skill applies to all allies when he gets awakened. I don't think it used to be that way. He used to be kind of lackluster overall. I think they've made some changes to him that make him much more useful now. I think he's going to be really, really helpful for Necro. I think he's going to be good in Rift. You can probably, again, use him in some early game Siege. But beyond that, I don't think he's going to be a staple in anything you're doing super early game, which is why he's not higher on the list. But I think he's great. I think changing the A2 to be a full team cleanse is a big deal for him. And maybe that's always been the way it's been. I just don't remember that. I feel like if that's always the way it's been, he would have been more popular back in the day too. But we've got multi-hits, we've got a full team cleanse, we've got another big multi-hit with a lot of debuffs. He's a really cool champ. I would say he could be your third or fourth fusion, and that's a pretty solid option. So in my opinion, and there's going to be differing opinions, but in my opinion, based on how I've been gauging my own progression and what's been the most meaningful to me, I think Veramos is the first Nat 5 you should fuse. I think he's so usable in so many different places in the game. He's necessary for the GB12 early speed team. He's very handy in TOA. I don't know that I would say he's absolutely necessary, but he's going to make your life a lot easier in TOA. You're just going to use him everywhere. He's so good. All right, Sigmarus also probably a close second in my opinion would be Sigmarus, and then third, fourth, and fifth, any combination of Panda, Jean, and Riley, depending on what it is you want to focus on. I would say you can't really go wrong there. I would say she's probably the last one you need to fuse, because by the time you get into a situation where you're building siege teams, you will probably have finished all of these. You know what I mean? So that's it. Again, there's multiple right answers to this. It's going to depend on how you're playing the game, what it is you're working on, what it is you're focusing on, what monsters you've pulled with your scrolls. You may have pulled a Nat 5 here and there that makes the need for some of these fusions lesser. So it's going to depend on a lot of things, but I think it's just kind of a generic approach to it. That's my opinion. So hopefully this at least points you in the right direction, give you some information you need. You can take it and apply it to your own account and fuse who you want to fuse. The biggest thing though is just to start doing the fusions straight away. Don't procrastinate the fusions. Don't let it overwhelm you. It's really not as convoluted as it might seem like it is. And again, a lot of the food's available down here. So you just get the Nat 3s, get them in this state, use the Nat 4s you need, bring them up into the state you need them for here. Not a big deal. You have access to a lot of these champs from the jump. So the sooner you get them, the better off you're going to be. All right. So that's it. Hopefully it helped. If you have any other tips you want to throw down about the fusions, anybody that I didn't follow up on enough, maybe there's some Nat 4s that I didn't talk enough about, maybe you feel differently about Riley or the Lightning Emperor, feel free to drop any of that in the comments down below, and be sure and check out the comments for some different input, because again, there's probably many right answers to all this. So that's it. Hopefully it helped. I'm getting out of here. Appreciate y'all. Later.